Take dos. Hello friends and welcome to another episode of the Urban Homesteading channel with Professor DIY, Mrs. DIY and Elpida. Today we're in the kitchen here in the homestead that ever since we moved into the house we wanted to do a little bit of upgrading, and now we're going to attack the cabinets, and today we are going to start refinishing the cabinets and making them a little more modern, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to make them look like a Saker style cabinet.
Yep.
And we're going to do that the easy way, or the cheating way, or whichever way you think it's the most appropriate way to call it. But we are going to make them look like Saker style. We're not going to throw them away. Part of our philosophy here at the homestead is that we do not want to fill the landfills, right?
Right.
We don't like to throw things away. And the wood in these cabinets is actually very good. There is no reason to throw it away. It's just that it looks dated.
Yeah, these are original cabinets, and thankfully they are, and it works in our favor that they're so plain, because that's easy to upgrade without replacing all of the doors, which is much more costly.
And also, if you mess things up, you can replace just the cabinets or make new cabinet doors, So it is a project, you don't want to mess it up, of course, but there is a consolation price if it doesn't look good, right? So we're going to start by removing a cabinet door. We're doing one at a time, or you can do it all at the same time. It depends on how you want to do it. So the first step will be to remove the hardware. The first step is to remove the hardware for the doors. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to leave one screw per hinge so the door is still attached, and then you do not have to support it the whole time. I sped up this process because it's both straightforward and easy to do, and it's just repetitive. Once you finish, you have the door free, and you can now start working and move on to the next steps as you continue the remake. Saker style doors traditionally do not have handles though, right? And these doors actually have a nice side reveal that you can open them
lip
without a handle.
And that goes all the way around the door. It's at the top, the sides, and the bottom, so that's really handy.
So we're going to decide, we haven't decided yet if we're going to reuse the handles or not. And we're going to probably have to fill this with a, what do you call it? A little... The best tool for this cuts, of course, is a table saw. And we're using here the contractor grade table saw. We have our old table saw. And we are cutting through MDF. It will allow us to make very consistent cuts throughout the whole process here. And keep it very, very similar throughout. It is a fast way to cut. However, MDF dulls your blades very, very quickly, so be aware of that. So even though we're outside, because it's MDF, Miss Wizard wants to make sure we're using the vacuum, because MDF is nasty for your lungs, right?
Correct.
And we do not need
safety
nasty.
First.
We don't need nasty. Now we have left this unchanged, so we're going to do all our ripping at the same level, at the same setting, right? So they will match throughout the cabinets.
Right.
And we don't have to reset it every time to make sure.
Right.
Now, if we do make a mistake, we have a couple of small pieces that we could easily put here and reset it for some reason. But ideally, I prefer to leave it as it is and make my cuts.
Right. So we've cut 2 more pieces, just as we did with our first door, and we actually measured the long piece exactly the length that we need it. We don't want any mistakes. It has to be 100% flush with the ends of the cabinet. And we're just gonna start gluing it down. We've got liquid nails here.
And this is the process we didn't show you on the first one, that's why we're showing it to you now. It is exactly what we did, but we did not capture it on video. Alignment is very important here, so take your time. Make sure that everything is flush and to your satisfaction. Everything is very visible here, and even small details that you miss will make your project look not professional. And the pin nails leave absolutely no sign that they were there, so they're a very good choice. Because we don't need strength here, we just want it held
while the adhesive cures. Okay.
With the 2 sides attached, we're going to use a piece to mark exactly when we need to cut it. And when you cut these pieces, it's always better to be a little proud, and then you can sneak into the cut.
If you're short, then you have to use that piece somewhere else and get a new one. But if you're long, you can always shorten it.
And here is our first door, and you can see now the dimensions of how it looks. These just need to be painted, right? I mean, that's the only thing we need to do.
Right.
So we're going to do that. We're going to finish one so you can see the difference, but then we're going to have to set an assembly line to do everything else, right?
Yep.
Because it is not time efficient to do it one at a time.
Correct. But we need to make sure that you're absolutely flush with all of the dimensions, because it will show if it's off.
In the same token, we want to test and make sure that the MDF, or to see how much the MDF absorbs. We might have to do 2 coats on the MDF and 1 on the door, you know? We'll see. All right, folks, we're going to get set up for paint and we'll be right back. So we purchased what we hope or think is going to be a good match for our cabinets, right? The worst thing that can happen is that we will need to paint the carcass of the cabinets too, which we try to avoid, but I mean, if we have to do it, it's not a catastrophe, right?
Right.
Worse things could happen. So we are just stirring the paint we purchased, and the moment of truth is upcoming, right?
Yep.
We are going to shortly know the good, the bad, and the ugly of the decision. We're going to fill the holes that they are left from the hardware with some white silicone, which is a preferred at this point because first of all it's white, and secondly it allows for expansion and contraction, so it is not going to reappear by drying in a different rate than the wood, right? And with that done, we are getting ready for the paint. So we started the painting, and it looks that it is a pretty decent match, right? To the rest of the door. Of course, we won't know for sure until we're done, but it looks pretty decent right now. And it doesn't have to be identical, of course, you know.
You want to make sure that any runs or drips or any imperfections in your brush strokes, so we're doing brush first, it's kind of the cutting in part, to make sure that everything is covered, because the roller won't get to these fine sections. But we want to make sure that anything that is a drip or a run gets smoothed out as quickly as possible, because it will definitely show in the finish.
And pay attention to your corners, because there will be anything not taken care in a corner will be visible, right?
Right.
So as you see, it has started transforming already. And we're thinking we'll probably have to do a couple of coats on the MDF, because it's raw MDF, right? I mean, it probably will absorb a lot.
And we did purchase a paint plus primer all-in-one, but still, it's very absorptive of the paint.
Right. Plus, we don't want it blotchy. We don't want it blotchy, right?
No, not at all. This should look as if it was sprayed on.
So we'll do as many coats as we need to make it look perfect, or as close to perfect as we can make it, right?
Yep.
But you can see the door transforming already, right? It has, I like the nice sharp edges that it has, right?
Yep. It's very modern, this design. I mean, you think about Shaker, it is very traditional, but it's also very modern because of the clean lines.
And when you think how much it costs to redo a kitchen, this is a fairly inexpensive, what we'll call it, a facelift.
Oh, definitely.
Now, it will take some time. It is repetitive, you know, you need to make sure you don't make mistakes in your cuts, right? We took our time with these cuts. Our corners look very good. What do you think?
Yeah, they are. And I think that's a benefit of using, you know, MDF, because there's no bowing,
Right.
knots to deal with.
Right, you don't have to worry about expansion and contraction that will open the joints. It is a dimensionally stable material, right?
Yep.
And right now it looks good. We want to see if when it dries, if it's going to. I mean, right now it looks great to me. What do you think?
Yep.
Very nice, crisp, clean lines.
And I'm also using, with this roller,
Yeah.
I bought a very smooth nap, so that we can, leave a smooth finish behind. You don't want anything that's going to make it clumpy.
And we might switch, when we do the production run, we might switch to our sprayer. It will make more sense if we have all the cabinets out or laying around. But I think it looks very smart.
So
What do
far,
you think?
so good. Yep.
All right. It's a nice color. So here we are, the door untouched and the finished product. And as you can see, it is a substantial improvement, at least in our opinion, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the color, the white, is pretty decent match. I mean, this is much cleaner, this is dirtier and so
Well,
forth.
yeah, but in terms of the color match, I think it's pretty
Right.
good.
A very well needed upgrade on these old cabinets.
Yep.
So we're going to repeat this process, but for now I just wanted to show you the finished product here, compared to the old one, and you can see the difference, right?
Yep.
This is one of the longest projects we have undertaken, and we are in our kitchen, and as you can see, it doesn't look great right now because we are about to finish the project of transforming plain cardboard doors into what they're called,
These are shaker style.
into shaker style, right?
But they aren't cardboard cabinets. They were just plain flat fronted wooden
No, they're not
cabinets.
I thought they were called cupboards, not cardboards.
Well,
Cupboard.
cupboards.
Yeah.
Cupboards, but you said cardboard, so I was confused.
No.
So plain, flat, cupboard doors into shaker style doors.
Right, as we have seen in our previous clips. So we decided to use MDF for this, as you can see here. And the reason why we don't use wood is because MDF is just very flat. It takes paint very well. There are not going to be irregularities. There are not going to be knots that we have to worry about.
And it's very stable.
It is very stable. It doesn't change with seasonal variations of humidity and temperature. So for this specific project, we don't work with MDF very often. But for this specific project, this is the best deal. And where we are now, as we've already shown you, we have put the MDF pieces all around the doors. And we have used some caulking to, even though they are very tight, as you can see, a little caulking is required. We use some brad nails, so we need to caulk the brad nailing, right? Mm-hmm. And where the two pieces meet, if needed, we use some caulking. And we did the same thing on the bottom of the cabinets. So now we're going to move on to the next phase, which is where it's going to start taking shape. And that is to paint. Okay, so we're getting ready to start the painting process. And we are going to use a roller, but we also have a brush standby in case we need it. An immediate transformation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we're not going to show you painting all the cabinet doors. The process is the same for all of them, right?
Mm-hmm. And the reason you're choosing to use a roller instead of a brush is speed for one thing, and the other is the way it finishes the paint job, right?
Yes. You might need to use a brush though in the corners.
Right, just to get into like those little corners there because you can see the edge. But this will make it a really nice smooth finish for you, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
So a very light sanding is what is needed here, because the white paint tends to show shadows if it is not perfectly flat, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a little bit of sanding and then just feel with your fingers to make sure that it is the way you want it. And one of the tricks we learned was to use a piece of paper bag, and you can put it over under your sanding block, and this is a perfect finish theoretically, right? It does a very good job doing a very, very fine sanding without generating a lot of dust and without damaging the surface. Because this was very fine sanding, it's a good idea to go over it with a vacuum so you can make sure of good adherence of your paint. Small pieces of material will make your paint not look as good and not adhere. So this is a necessary step. So here we are. The project is finished. Mrs. DIY, what are your thoughts?
I really like it. It looks very much more modern and crisp and clean.
And the cost is amazing. I mean, if you do this through a contractor, you're going to probably pay between $5,000 and $10,000 easily, right?
Yeah.
The cost of our material was under $100, about $45 in MDF, and a tube or two of liquid nails, and the paint, right?
Right.
All of those things under $100, and we did not plan to put handles because traditionally Secular style cabinets do not have handles, right?
Right.
But if you wanted to put handles, then you will go a little more expensive than that, based on what you buy. But the way you see it now, this is an under $100 project that made a huge, huge difference in the way the kitchen looks, in my opinion, right?
Right.
Now, this is not a one weekend project. We need to be transparent with that, right? This takes some time. You cannot do it in a couple of hours.
Right.
So you notice the difference in wardrobe, in clips. It took us more than a weekend to do it. I guess if you do nothing but do that in a weekend, maybe you can do it in a weekend. But it will be the full 2 days, right?
Right.
The painting takes easily, what you will say, 5 to 6 hours?
The painting itself probably only takes about 4 hours, depending on the size of your kitchen, of course. But it's the prep work that takes the most time.
Right, and cutting the MDF, there's a lot of repetition, right? There are a lot of things you have to do. But in any case, this is our outcome for today. A very updated kitchen for $100. And in most cases, you won't have to do that, but that includes the paint to upgrade the look of our range, which looks amazing, right?
Yep.
Matches the rest of the kitchen, and everything looks absolutely fine. So we started our project in this corner, and we're ending it in this corner, right? You can see the difference. The look is very nice and crisp, and I don't know, I really like it. And we are very pleased with the outcome. From Professor DIY and Mrs. DIY, let us know what other projects you might want to see in future episodes, and let's build something together.